So let's see, there's this woman. She doesn't feel that confidence. What should she do?
We were told confidence, you either have it or you don't. You're an introvert or you're an extrovert. But the truth is, confidence is
Oh, I love that.
Aishwarya Rai, a huge one for me. She's on my vision board. Donna in Suits.
Oh.
The way she walks into every room, you know, her confidence, her body language.
How I actually made a connection to Priyanka Chopra. What about vision boarding? Does that help?
I don't vision board. What I do is create something called a becoming board.
What is the connection between confidence and communication? What is the biggest communication hack or trick that you think billionaires, CEOs, politicians are using?
Silent confidence is the most powerful one.
Someone who's walking into a job interview. What is the persona that they need to carry? How should they speak? What about communication with relationships? Let's say romantic partners, spouses, family. When you attack someone with communication, it never works out.
For anybody involved. And a lot of us are overcome with anxiety and nerves, that sick feeling in your stomach right before you go and do something.
Like that gut clenching.
Horrible. And I get it, I'm with you. But in order to overcome those kind of nerves,
hello and welcome to the Masoom Minawala show. You guys should watch this episode if you want to know how to be more confident. It's as simple as that. This episode is for everyone who's ever felt not good enough, for anyone who's ever stayed silent in a meeting, shied away from taking up space, or second-guessed their worth. Your voice is your power, and I'm so happy to have Nimi Mehta here with us, who's a TV and radio host, MC, international speaker, public speaking and communication expert, and whatnot, to actually take us through what it means to find your voice and to build that confidence for so many of us that have not had it, that have struggled to find it. You're doing God's work.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm so grateful for being on your podcast, truly. And thank you for including this whole topic in the conversation. It's just so important, and I'm excited to share more with you today.
No, I'm super excited. And this is something that I genuinely feel that Indian women struggle with, right? We've been told, even I've been told my whole life that, are you a good girl? Be a good girl. Talk softly. Be a certain way. Your voice shouldn't be heard too loudly in the room. And I think we've been taught that to be meek is to be good. If you're good, you're appreciated, you're valued. And what's that word? To submit.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
To submit has been kind of a woman's role in Indian society. And I don't think we can... I don't think we can question that.
Yeah.
So I would love if today's conversation can really be about how people who don't have that confidence can actually go out there and find it. So let's see, there's this woman. She's suffering from self-doubt. She's entering a room that she feels very conscious in. She doesn't feel that confidence. What should she do? What is that action she needs to take to change that feeling and find her confidence?
Yeah, I would love to say there's this like overnight fix that I would love to put in a bottle and sell because I would be a trillionaire by now. But the truth is, I think it's a mindset shift. It's a reframing, right? And it's understanding that growing up, we were told confidence, you either have it or you don't. You're an introvert or you're an extrovert.
Yes.
But the truth is, confidence is a skill. Confidence is something that you can master every single day. It's like going to the gym, right? Working out a muscle, working on that every day. It gets stronger, it gets bigger. It's the same thing with confidence. So it's the tiny habits within your day. It's the self-talk, the way you speak to yourself. You know, we all have that internal voice, like the angel and the devil on the shoulders. And sometimes the devil takes more control, right? And that's that negative, what we call the inner critic. That is always telling us, you can't do this. Are you crazy? You're delusional. This isn't for you. Nobody's going to believe you. Nobody wants to hear you. Nobody wants to see you. So what do? We shrink ourselves. And I think that shifting that woman who feels this and resonates with everything that I'm saying right now, you need to start to recognize that confidence is something you can work on. All you need to do is make the decision that tomorrow is going to be different. And of course, we'll go into how you can do that. But I think that initial mindset shift is really, really important.
I think first is also believing that there can be a change.
Yeah.
You can feel differently, right? And I'm going to talk about my personal journey as well, because I think that's kind of could be helpful for people that are tuning in, listening, watching. I've found myself in the past to be very confident in front of the camera. and I could do anything in front of the camera. But as soon as you would put one person in the room with me, so there's my tripod,
Yeah.
and then you land another person, and it could even be a family member,
Mm-hmm.
you begin to feel so conscious.
Yeah.
Right. And there's these layers of insecurity that kind of come in here, and you feel like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, when you walk into a room, when I walk into an event, because that is a part of my job, I've lost so many gigs or so many opportunities because I don't think I knew how to network. I knew how to be confident and own my voice. And I've trained myself over time. But as someone who's done it,
Mm-hmm.
I can say that it's such an uncomfortable process.
It is. It
You
is.
know, so for someone to actually get down to doing it, how do you enjoy that? Because for
Yeah.
me, it was like every time I would walk into a room, I had to tell myself that, you know, you have to push yourself. There's that bit of forcing yourself that requires until you take that leap of faith, and then you're
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
taking that leap is a bit of pushing.
Yeah. I think it's also, even in that situation, and I resonate with that story so much because I felt exactly the same. But it was which fear outweighed me, which was I don't want to stay the same as I am today because it's not serving me and it's not who I want to be. Future me. We have a lot of stuff that's talking about future me. What is it that you want to be and become like? And what do you want to look like to other people and to yourself? I was more scared to stay in that place than
Mm,
actually trying. So I would want you to outweigh the fear. Are you more comfortable with staying exactly where you are? Or do you actually feel like, oh my God, if I don't change, I'm going to regret this the rest of my life? And the second thing I want to add to is that I think the most important thing is clarity, right? When you were talking about stepping into these event rooms and into these spaces and new people, a lot of the issues that women have is they don't know what they want to sound like. They don't know how they want to come across. They don't know the emotions that they want to evoke from other people. And this is where clarity is really important. I want to be
okay.
known for XYZ. When I speak to people, I want them to feel inspired, motivated, and ready. These kind of identifying this kind of words and this language will then be able to help you show up as that person. And a huge technique that helped me at the very beginning of my journey was forming my alter ego. This
Okay.
is a huge, a huge, I would say, funnel and vessel for you to start to show up. So anyone right now who is really shy, who feels like they're an introvert, who doesn't know how to show up in rooms, feel like they have so much to say, but don't know how to say it, I would start building your alter ego. And the only way that that happens is by identifying people who are your confidence heroes,
Okay.
right? So who do you watch online? Any
So like
social
mentors.
kind
I
of
mean, kind of like my,
yeah, your role models.
okay, my role
People
models.
that you
Yeah.
look up to.
Yeah.
So people that you see on TV, people that you see, athletes, any people that you see on social media. I want you to identify 5 people. And then what I want you to do is become a student and study these 5 people. Right? So how do they show up online? What do they talk about? How do they make me feel? Right? Identify these things. Then I want you to go even deeper into identifying the technical things like their body language, the way they dress, their facial expressions. I did that, and I can tell you firsthand very quickly who was on my kind of vision board
Yes.
of my
Yes. I'm
alter
excited to know.
ego. So, have you watched Suits?
Yes.
Yes. So, Donna in Suits,
Oh,
the way she walks into every room, her confidence, her body language, the way she dresses and presents herself, I was like, okay, I want a piece of Donna. So I got inspired by Donna and I implemented a bit of Donna into my alter ego. Oprah, as a TV host and someone who has her show, I was like, this is someone who inspires me, her poise. The way she asks people questions, the way she does her research so well and then comes across to her guests. I was like, okay, I want a bit of that. Aishwarya Rai, a huge one for me. She's on my vision board. She had an interview with Jared Leto on a late night show. And he said to her, what is it like? I hear in the Indian culture, women actually stay in their family's home until they get married and then they move over to their, husband's home. And she sat there and the whole audience was laughing. And Aishwarya Rai sat there, she soaked everything in from the audience and she looked at him and she goes, yes, but in Indian culture, we don't have to take appointments with our parents either. And she just sat back and let everyone loved it. They were clapping for her. And I thought, that level of security that Aishwarya Rai had to just sit back, pause, and then speak, but be incredibly intelligent and witty was so powerful. So those are just 3 examples of people in my alter ego. But what I started to do was just show up as that person. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it feels so alien. But what I realized the more and more I showed up as that alter ego was that it was always in me. I wasn't playing a character. I wasn't acting. This was always in me. I just needed a reason to show up as her.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, as you say this, I can't help but. So I've written a book.
Yeah.
It's called She'll Never Make It, and it's about my journey. When I started creating content and the kind of different roles I adopted and adapted to. And there's a part that I talk about, and I didn't realize I was doing this, by the way. I was doing this kind of almost like a hack or like a process, but I clearly was. Because when I moved, I was living in India my whole life, and then I got married, and my husband's from Belgium. So we lived in Belgium for 5 years until we moved to Dubai. But when I first moved to Belgium, I was like, my world was shaken apart, right? Because I didn't know what I would do about my work, and my business and my audience was very India and Indian focused. My community was Indian, and I felt like they would only relate to me if I was Indian. And I speak about this, that how I actually made a connection to Priyanka Chopra. And I saw, and it was actually somebody who advised me to do this as well. But they advised me to look at what her path was, because she also had left India and gone to the USA. She had an Indian audience, and she had to break apart from that and take on more of a global persona. And I had to embody that.
Yeah.
And that process became 10 times easier, faster, quicker. And I felt lighter because I felt like this was a blueprint that I could kind of turn to and I could follow.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I was doing this. So this is clearly a really, really good hack. And
It
I would
really-
encourage everyone to do this.
Totally. And that word that you just used, embody, you embody something, but you need to go back to the drawing board first, identify those people and study them. That's exactly what I did and clearly what you did. And it's got us to a really good place. It's powerful.
What about vision boarding? Does that help?
Look, I can see why vision boarding would help a lot of people. I don't vision board. What I do is create something called a becoming board.
Okay.
And that is everything that I want to strive towards. So it's less materialistic things. It's less like, having a nice house on my vision board or a nice car. It's more the impact that I want to create in the world. So that becoming board is super powerful because it's my reference point to keep reminding me, even when I feel really rubbish about myself, which we all have, those days where we're like full of self-doubt. Why am I doing this? I just want to quit and, retire, go to an island somewhere and start a bar, like completely leave the life that I know. It reminds me and it brings me back to my center. And I think that all of us have this center purpose. And there's always a question of, okay, but purpose is such a big thing. How do I find it? It's as simple as what brings you joy? What makes you come to life? That is your purpose.
So what if it's something like going to Pilates?
Yeah, I think that's powerful though, right? It's powerful. It's going to Pilates, that makes me feel alive. Okay, make sure you never stop that because that is going to be the center and your nucleus. I think there's a misconception that your purpose always has to turn into a business or
That's so true.
right?
Oh my God.
And I think that why?
That's
Why
so
can't my
true.
purpose just be really loving going to Pilates 3-4 times a week, still having a job on the side, but still making me feel good about myself? Yeah.
And having that distinction.
Yeah.
But that comes with the clarity. So I think what a lot of people have asked me in the past as well is that you don't get it because you're so confident. And I think people don't realize that I was never this confident, right?
Yeah.
It's been such a journey for me. And I've really had my fair share of, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to face anyone. What am I doing? Kind of doubting myself. I've moved countries twice. So that's been like mentally taxing, kind of trying to create new connections, create new friends, create new communities. Always pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is not the kindest thing you do. But what about you? Have you always been this confident?
Never. What you see today is a product of a decade of working on myself. I was actually quite a mute when I was a little girl. I was the quietest in the room, wouldn't even make eye contact with people because I didn't want them to
Mm.
speak to me. I barely had a voice. I didn't feel like I had a space to speak up. And I accepted my position. And I feel like that's what a lot of us do. We accept that this is our personality and it's our character. Oh, Nimmi, she's quiet, don't worry about her, was always the narrative. And you believe that narrative, once it's built over time.
Also, because it's said repeatedly, right? Whatever is said in
Exactly.
repetition, we believe is our reality.
Exactly. But based on that, then, if we change the language and repeat it in a positive way that has a positive impact on us, proof that it can be changed, right?
Yeah.
So if we hear something positive on repeat about ourselves all the time, I am confident, I can show up as myself, I speak very powerfully, we'll start believing that narrative instead of, Nimmi, she's the quiet one. Nimmi doesn't talk to anybody. So that being said, it was just such a process for me. And I think the first thing, and I think that back to our Indian culture, is the voices around us that were speaking not so great about us, that didn't allow us to come out of our shell. A lot of us sometimes don't have a choice because a lot of these people are like in our family and they're blood related.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do I hold boundaries with people? Which is a whole other conversation.
But what are some things that you've heard?
Yeah, some of the things that I've heard is, when I said I wanted to become a TV host, and this was just a far-fetched dream, obviously, because I'm this quiet girl that, doesn't speak to anyone. Oh, this only happens to like 1% of the world. You'll never make it. And then when I started on YouTube, it was people at university laughing at me, prank calling me, being like, oh my gosh, is this the Nimi Mehta? Oh my God, are you famous? You have 2 views on YouTube. And you look back at that now and you're like, this is great. Okay, fine. You wanted to have some fun. But ironically now, it's the same people who are in my DMs saying, I always knew you would make it. So that actually created a fire in my belly. Like I was like, okay, you think I can't do it?
I'll do it and show you.
Yeah, I'll do it and show you. And it started as wanting to prove to people. But at some point, it changed to just wanting to prove it to myself, for myself, not for anybody else. And still to this day, I would be lying to you if I told you I was 100% confident. I know that that's what I sell, and I know that's what I preach. But also, I think there's a side of confidence that people don't speak about, which is vulnerability. And I think saying that I don't feel my most confident self today is part of the process. Yes, I still have self-doubts. Yes, I still have that, negative voice telling me I can't do it. The difference between myself and somebody at the beginning of their journey is that I have the tools in place to overcome the self-doubt quicker.
Yeah.
And that's what I think confidence is. I think it's doubt management.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting take.
Yeah. It's the doubt that you have, being able to manage it, being able to reframe it, and being able to turn it into something that's working for you, and the speed at which you can do it. And I genuinely believe anybody in the world can master it.
So let's say, I know you said there's no magic trick to this in a bottle.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing someone has to do to enter a room and flip the fear, what is it? What should they tell themselves?
I think you need to tell yourself that your voice is worthy. And nobody else has to tell you this, but you need to tell you this. You need to hold a space for yourself. You need to give yourself permission. And I think that a lot of us women don't give ourselves permission. You know that statistic of a man and a woman applying for a job, and men, even though they are underqualified, will actually pitch themselves as if they are overqualified.
Yes.
And women, even though they are more than overqualified, will pitch themselves as if they're underqualified. And I think that as women, we don't give ourselves permission. We don't hold space for ourselves. So I would say that every room you step into, I would want you to, if we're talking about like technical, practical, and I'm imagining someone stepping into a room, I want you to breathe. I want you to pause. I want you to hold your center. And I want you to speak up only when it's worth speaking up. I don't want you to go to the other extreme now and be like the loudest person in the room, because I think there's a serious misconception about that being the loudest person in the room means you are the most confident in the room. Incorrect. If anything, when I go into a room and I see someone really loud and, they're showing
Yeah.
a lot, I sit back and I'm like, I feel so sorry for them to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah, because it is some sense of insecurity that's kind of
Yeah.
being.
That's being showcased.
Yeah.
It's a show. I think there's such thing as silent confidence. And silent confidence is the most powerful one. It's where you step into a room, you don't need to speak, but your aura and your presence creates an energy in the room. And that can be cultivated, but it has to start with you believing it first.
Okay. So I think that first step is you believing that there needs to be a change.
Yes.
What's the second step?
The second step would actually start to act on it, right? We can sit here and believe all we want, but it's like the action.
Put in the work.
Put in the work. There is no easy 1, 2, 3 to this. Put in the
No.
work. Every day you decide that I'm going to walk into that meeting room, or I'm going to walk into that living room, or I'm going to walk onto that stage, and I am going to show up as future me, this person that I'm striving towards, that I really want to become, the people that I want to impact. I'm going to show up as her. It might not be perfect today. It might not be perfect tomorrow. But you know what? Every time I do it, a piece of the puzzle is going to join. And by the end of it, at some point, that puzzle is going to be whole. And that is what I'm striving towards. So show up as that person every single day in your personal conversations, at work with your colleagues. Start to do things that are very un-you. Because right now, the version of you isn't working for you. There's a reason for that. There's a reason you're sitting there feeling lost, insecure, like there's no space for you. So you're not happy with the current version of you. Okay, well, the only way to change that is to let go of that past
And
version.
do something different.
And do something different.
What is the connection between confidence and communication?
Huge connection. Look, when you have the utmost confidence in the room, your words, well, we break it up into non-verbal and verbal. So your non-verbal communication is your body language, your facial expressions, your hand gestures, your posture, everything that comes with it, right? Everything that you see. The verbal being your words, your tone, your pace, your volume, all of these things then coming together. And I can see why people would find that a lot. It's a lot to think about. And that's not something I want people to think about at the beginning of their journey. But when it comes to confidence and communication, once you actually master your confidence, communication feels so much easier because you're so much more centered. I'll give you an example. I used to have a really high pitched voice when I started on the radio 8 years ago. And I heard my radio demo one year and it was like, "Hi, I'm Nimi Mehta. I'm on Radio 1 Abu Dhabi." And it was just the most cringiest voice. And I heard it and I said to myself, well, if I hate listening to it, the whole country hates listening to it. I need to change my voice. And that's exactly what I did. I went from, "Hi, this is Nimi Mehta," to, "Hi, this is Nimi Mehta." And the way I did that was actually training my voice. Like
Okay.
your voice is like an instrument. It's like a vocal cord. The way you tune a guitar, the way you tune a piano,
Wow.
you can change
Okay.
the sound of your voice.
I didn't know that.
You can, yeah. So what I did every day was started pushing my voice lower. Every time I spoke, even if that was to my mom, to my sister, to my partner, I spoke like lower, and the depth, it kind of became thicker. I made my voice thicker. And I'm the first to tell you, and unfortunately, as women, when we have squeaky, high-pitched voices, which may be natural to us, people listen to us less, right? People won't stop. You won't have people's attention as much. You can change that voice if you get this kind of feedback, or if you yourself feel like, I don't like the sound of my voice.
And I want to change it.
And I want to change it.
But why is a low-pitched voice worse than a high-pitched voice?
Low-pitched voices just command more attention. It is just even if you were to do studies, the way that you hear a low-pitched voice that is thicker and
think
more
it's more
in-depth,
intelligent. You
sounds,
perceive it to be more intelligent.
it's perceived as more intelligent. It's perceived as they've got it together.
Okay.
It's perceived as they know what they're talking about. And it stems from that authority of a voice, right? Example, Obama. Him, whenever he gives a speech, that depth of his voice commands attention. Politicians are literally trained to change their voice to ensure it's lower, thicker, with more depth, so that they can command the attention of the people.
So is that something you train people with as well?
Yes. And even, when we're speaking about voice, it also then comes into your breathing and the way that you're breathing. And there's 3 different places that people speak out of. So you either speak from the throat, or you speak from your chest, or you speak from your stomach.
Yeah.
And the best place to speak from is your stomach, right? Because I found with a lot of people who speak through their throat, their throat starts hurting after a while.
Yes.
It's not sustainable, and that's
Yes.
not where the depth comes from. The chest, to speak from there means that you're not going to be able to breathe properly, and breathing is essential when you're public speaking. And then if you're speaking from your stomach, it's just that depth comes through, that power comes through.
And how do you speak from your stomach?
So it's a lot of centering, and it's a lot of breath work that you need to
Okay.
do to be
Okay.
able to start gaining power from your stomach. So, and it wouldn't take a lot of like muscle tensing as well to get there. So whenever you speak, for example, let's just use the word apple, okay? When you say apple, you want to push from your stomach. So you go,
Apple.
apple. Can you feel your stomach kind of tensing?
Apple. Yeah.
Apple.
Apple.
Apple. And you kind of
Apple.
are pushing,
Yeah.
right? And that depth comes through. If I was to speak just from my throat, it would be apple, apple, apple. That is literally just from my throat. My stomach's not even moving. Apple, apple, apple. You're stuck in your throat if your voice is high pitched. You need to push it to your stomach. It's very technical, and I know it sounds really intense.
So can you tell where I'm speaking from?
If when you're speaking, I feel like you vary. Because when we started at the beginning, and I have a detector for this, when you started at the beginning, it started actually in your throat. But then when you just asked, can you hear where I'm speaking from? I could feel that from your stomach because there was just so much depth and grounding in your voice. But it's something that I work with all my clients to work through over time, right? It's not, again, a one-time
This
fix.
is so interesting, by the way. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah, there's so many layers to it.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Mm.
What is the biggest communication hack or trick that you think billionaires, CEOs, politicians are using?
I love this question. So I would say they know who they're talking to. And that's what a lot of us don't realize. We use a one rule for all when we speak to people, but it's very different. So if I was to walk into a room of, 100 year 11 students, right? The way I speak to them is going to be very different to how I walk into a room full of CEOs and VPs, right? My language is going to be different. My tone is going to be different. And I think that this is what differentiates the best public speakers in the world. And the second thing I would say is the best speakers in the world, your Tony Robbins, your Jay Shetty's, all of these people that show up on stage and give phenomenal speeches. And it makes you feel like it's the first time they've ever said it. They have never spoken these words before, and they've said it on the spot and you feel it. The reason is because all of these people have done this speech probably over 100 times. They have gone back, refined their speech, practice, practice, practice. That is what the top speakers in the world have done. That is what the top CEOs, VPs, entrepreneurs in the world do. The first time you hear them speak isn't the first time they've spoken those words. And I think that's the difference, is that the power in preparation, being the most prepared speaker
person in the room
is literally the most
I think
powerful.
with everything, not just speaking, right? With anything, if you're prepared, is the confidence you exude is just something else.
Which just proves that you don't need to be a natural speaker.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You can be an introvert or label yourself as an introvert, but you can train yourself to become a powerful speaker and you can show up as that. And so this is what the top speakers I think do, is that they just prepare and they are so ready to just show up as that person because they've trained themselves again and again.
No, that's beautiful. So let's say, for example, there's someone who's walking into a job interview. What is the persona that they need to carry? How should they speak? And how should they? Because I truly believe the way you show up is going to change the fate of your life, right? Especially in a job interview. Because one career move here or there can change everything.
Totally, totally. And I think that it's, again, knowing who you are speaking to.
Okay.
So if you know exactly who you're going to be in the room with, visualization also is a huge thing that really, really works and is so powerful. So every time I step into a room, every time I know I'm going to be on a stage, I actually Google like what the stage looks like if I haven't hosted on that stage before,
Okay.
what that room looks like, what that stage looks like, what that podcast studio looks like. And then I actually close my eyes and I visualize me walking into that room, chest up, shoulders back, best posture, smiling, looking happy. I'm closing my eyes, you can see, whilst I'm doing this because I'm visualizing it as we're going. And then I visualize the whole thing from me walking onto the stage like an absolute swan or panther, like Donna from Suits. I get onto that stage. I then visualize me doing a really powerful opening. I don't go into the details of what that sounds like. It's just visualizing the imagery. And then I visualize the people in the audience or in the interview room and their positive reactions back to me, which is eye contact with me, smiling at me, their head tilting slightly to the left because that indicates that someone is invested in what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
And so reading that room and then me seeing myself shake their hand, leave that room and walk out with confidence and know that I'm going to get that call afterwards to say, hi, we'd love to give you the job. So visualizing is a huge technique that, again, a lot of the top speakers in the world use, because once you actually do it in real time, you feel like you've already done it. And therefore it feels familiar. And a lot of us are overcome with anxiety and nerves, that sick feeling in your stomach, right? Before you go and do something.
Like that gut clenching.
Horrible, horrible. And I get it. I'm with you. But in order to overcome those kind of nerves, I would say something like visualization is really, really helpful to make you feel like you've already done it.
And I want to talk a bit about, because I've studied about why this works, and it's a technique that I actually implement very often. And the reason that I found it works was, for someone like me, I like to know the why.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Like, why is this helping me? And I found that the reason it works is because when I'm taking my brain, right? And I like to separate myself from my brain, but when I'm taking my brain through the situation, it is no more out of its comfort zone.
Yeah.
So as soon as I'm taking it through its situation, beforehand visualizing it, when I actually walk in, the brain's like, I know this.
Exactly.
I got this. We already did this yesterday.
Yeah.
So now I'm confident and I'm relaxed.
Yes.
Right? And when you're relaxed, I think a more authentic version of yours kind of is on display.
Totally. Everything's familiar.
Yeah, it's familiar.
It's familiar, right? You're in that space. And so when you're actually physically there, you're like, oh, okay, let's go again. Let's get this done because I'm going to feel great after this. I've been here before.
And I know what that final feeling feels like.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's always what you bear in mind, is that final feeling when I'm done, how proud am I going to be of myself? How proud am I going to be? And I always keep that kind of in my mind, and that helps me just set the tone for the whole process. So yeah, if you've got a job interview, if you're, got an intense something coming up, visualize it beforehand. It's really powerful.
What about communication with relationships, right? Like, let's say romantic partners, spouses, family. There are so many times where we feel underconfident and we're unable to speak and ask for what it is that we think we deserve. How should one find that confidence?
Wow, I love this question so much because I think we all have encountered this. It's a universal feeling that all of us have felt. There's two things. So the first thing is something that I go through when I want to set a boundary with someone, family, friend, whoever it may be, even if they're the closest person to me. And it's something that I call the trust triangle. And it is based on three things. And it is, working through this triangle that allows me to identify whether this conversation that I'm about to have is worth it or not. So the first is cost, right? What is having this conversation going to cost me? And what I mean by that...
Sorry to interrupt, but you're basically analyzing whether this confrontation is worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like the 3-step process
Okay.
to get you to feel confident enough to actually have the conversation.
Okay.
Right? So the first being cost, which is, what is this going to cost me? And I think that a lot of us think, oh my God, if I have this conversation, I'm going to lose this relationship. Not the case. Realistically, what are you going to lose? What is going to be the cost of this? And then on the flip side, if I don't speak up, what will this cost me? And when you don't speak up, usually what you'll realize is the cost of that is, less self-confidence, less self-belief, less self-love. And so when you're not speaking up, you lose more of yourself. And I think that kind of outweighs and makes you realize, okay, the cost is totally, kind of worth it. The second of the triangle is clarity and understanding what exactly it is, the message that you want to get across to that person and how I'm going to show up, right? So what am I going to have to say? What is the action that I'm going to have to take to make sure that this whole situation is clarified for both people involved? And I think then when it comes to that particular part is where we all struggle. It's because we have all these feelings like built up inside and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to say it. I don't know what to say. Keep it really, really simple. And the thing I use for that is the we feel. So it's the you feel. So you start off with I feel XYZ. Then it goes on to you may feel XYZ. And then the last is we must do this to actually clarify our situation. How many times have you had a, disagreement with your partner, right? And you're like, oh my God, I'm so angry at him and I just want to scream and shout at him. I felt that all the time. But instead of that, I say, you know what? I felt that XYZ. And then I'll say, you may feel XYZ. And then I'll say, we should do XYZ. What do you think? And that's more of a constructive, more of a response rather than a reaction.
So I just do the first part of it.
Nice. I feel.
Which is instead of saying that you make me feel terrible or you made me feel like you made me wait so long. You didn't call me back.
Yeah.
You were too busy. I say, I felt neglected because you didn't call me back. And it always just instantly kind of changes it up. But I'm gonna try step 2 and step 3 as well.
Yeah.
I just do step 1 and then leave it at that.
But that's so good because at least that's not a reaction. It's still a response. Yeah. And there's a huge difference between a reaction and response. Yeah. And out of a reaction, we get negative kind of outcomes.
And honestly, Nimmi, like life has taught me, and I don't know why it's not taught so many other people, but it's pretty obvious that when you attack someone with communication, it never works out.
For anybody involved.
Yeah. There is nothing good that comes out of it. When you say that, oh, you never have time for me.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
No.
Right? Versus when you say that, can we please talk about this? I've been feeling a certain way. I've been feeling so and so. Or, with a friend, like I've been feeling disconnected. Or the conversation needs to be, can we try and spend more time together?
Exactly.
Right?
That.
Versus I feel like when you're attacking someone, it never leads to anything productive.
It never. And your intention might be to fix things, but it never comes across that way.
Yeah, but that's because you're hurt and you're angry.
Yeah. And I think that then that's worth saying that don't speak when you're still in your reactive mode.
Yeah.
Take time to pause, take time to have a moment to yourself. If you truly value this relationship, give it that space to then be able to speak to them in a positive, when you're in a positive mode, to be able to break it down like that.
What are some phrases or sentences that people say that actually make them feel small or make them seem forgettable?
Yeah.
Or uncertain about themselves?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, first things first is when you have an opinion to share, a lot of us say, I think that we should maybe do this. And straight off the bat, we're saying, I think. We don't say, I think. Okay, we don't do that. We say, I believe we should do this. Right? Or if you don't even want to do that, I believe, we just say, we should do this. If you want to be even more ballsy, Yeah. Like, I think that when we say, and especially as women, we tend to say, oh, do you mind if we're so polite and we're so soft.
We say sorry.
Yeah.
We say way too much sorry.
Why? Why are we always apologizing? It's because we have been taught to always apologize for who we are, for our actions, even when we're sharing something positive. For example, in a meeting, if we know that a colleague is not sharing the right information, we will say, sorry, can I just... Why are we doing this?
I hate when I do that.
Yeah.
But I do it.
you do it. And that's because it's a habit. But that habit needs to be broken and it needs to be changed. So saying things like, I think, no, we're not doing that anymore, ladies. We're taking that out and we are just sharing our opinion and leaving it as a full sentence. I think the other thing is we tend to say no, but now when we say no, we give excuses and reasons as to why. And we all know the quote, no is a full sentence. No, full stop. And that's okay. But as women, we say, oh, no, sorry, I can't do that for you today because I have XYZ on my plate. Maybe I can do it in 2 days' time. Let me know. It's like, it's always this appeasing. We are women who are natural nurturers. You know, it is in our nature to be people pleasers. But to what extent? So hold your own. If you strongly believe against something, say no, full stop.
What is that one sentence that everyone should master saying to, hold their ground, to be able to stand up for themselves?
I love that. I think it's literally a case of sharing your boundary. And when I say your boundary, whatever the context is, right? Saying, I don't agree with that. A lot of us might not agree with something, but we'll go along with it and be like, and as women, we really empathize with people as well. We're like, yeah, I understand. I get that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't agree with that. And this is why. And just holding your own, but also when we hold our own, we don't go back on it. We don't then say, hold our own, hold our boundary, and then say, oh, actually, no, you know what? Forget it. No, we have to hold our own and then continue to hold our own. So it's that
But
practice.
how do you stay away from being rude while being assertive?
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
And why are we so afraid of being rude?
Because
That's such a big one.
I know. You know why? I think if you look at it as being rude, then you are going to hold yourself back. But I think assertive is the right word, right? And holding your line. And I have this in so many work situations myself where you don't want to be labeled as the diva. You don't want to be labeled, excuse my language, you can bleep this out, as a this is the labels that as women we get if we speak up, if we
100%.
hold our ground.
100%.
So I don't want to be known as that. So instead, what I'll do is I won't speak. No, I think there's a difference between being assertive and being rude. So we don't want to be rude, which is being, degrading to people and being rude to them and saying negative things. But being assertive means just holding your line. And I actually think there's a really nice way to do that. I use humor a lot, which is smiling when I say it, and I will hold my line and be like, I'm sure you understand. I will hold my line, whatever in that context that is, which is, I'd rather not. I will be showing at 6 p.m. for the shoot. I'm sure you understand. That is me holding my line. That is me not asking for permission. That is me telling them what I will be doing and leading it on with, I'm sure you understand. And as a woman, actually, I honestly think we have a superpower when it comes to being a female, because we have that ability to also be cheeky and soft whilst being assertive. And so finding that balance is hard. But I think that if you approach it with me holding my line, holding my ground for what I believe in, then it feels so much better than being rude.
Can we talk a little bit about having the confidence to make new friends?
Yeah.
Because that's such a big
oh my
one.
Gosh. Yeah.
That is such a big one of actually confidence playing such a pivotal role in your life.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. For a lot of us, I've done the same as you, which is move countries and start new mini families of community around you. It's really hard because to put yourself out there and, to also get rejected. And I think that if you're getting rejected, it's actually a very good sign, because I'd rather be getting rejected than not. If I'm not getting rejected, that means I'm not trying. Whereas if I'm getting rejected, I'm trying, and that's in everything.
But this is like personal rejection. It hurts.
It hurts.
Right? Especially with friends. If there's someone who's not reciprocating, you've made an effort. It's quite an uncomfortable position to be in.
But then at the same time, I would then assess that as they're not worth it. They're not worthy of my energy.
Okay, but how do you wrap that up and move on to the next one? Because that gets tricky, right? Because in that rejection, you build that layer that, oh, I'm not good enough, right? And of course, I know this is what you should say, but I'm talking on behalf of so many people that feel this,
Yeah.
that they feel I'm not good enough. So where do you go? What's the next step?
I think it's, again, like not attaching your value to these relationships. And that comes with dating as well. The amount of,
Yes.
girls who go through this as well, they're like, oh my gosh. But I can only speak from my personal experience, is that this faith in the universe or faith in God or whatever it is that you believe in, I truly believe that he has my back, and that if people exit my life, it's for a good reason. And years later, I've then looked back and been like, oh my gosh,
This made sense.
it was meant to be this way. He was meant to take this person out of my life to serve me, and it feels initially like a burn, and it hurts. It really does. I would say don't try to rush out of the hurt. I don't think that's worth it. Sit in it, feel it. But then moving forward, start to actually watch the red flags and the green flags in people. These are all tests that are coming to you to start to then carve the tribe around you that are truly meant to be. Read these red flags. If you see early signs of people not giving you the same energy back that you give them, not showing you the same love, not reciprocating anything, you need to start to detach. And I think that we need to normalize attachment and detachment from people. How many people in this world I think will be okay?
Yeah.
This one person is not the be all and end all. And I think that reframing that in our mind of it being meant to be, and this person wasn't meant to be in my life right now, they might find their way back to me. I'm okay with that. And I think that kind of shift is important.
Interesting. What are some kind of hacks of communication or confidence to make more friends?
Yeah, I would say that
That's an interesting one for, I think, everyone in their 30s.
Mm.
Because you're kind of at this age where you're,
it's like
at the cusp, like
yeah, it's like in between.
in between.
Yeah. I think that well, what I've noticed lately is like girls just having no shame and loving it. Like I have so many people, we have mutual friends who literally just DM'd me out of the blue to be like, hey, I'd love to go for a coffee with you, and putting themselves out there and not thinking twice, because I think that what is the worst that can happen, right? What is the worst? Okay, someone could say, no, I don't fancy it. Okay, cool. At least you know.
Yeah.
Right? You've got loads of other people that you can connect with. But I think that kind of it is really hard at our age to make friends with people, but I would say that be intentional with it. Right? You don't just connect with people just because it's good to connect with people. What aligns?
It needs to make sense.
Yeah, what aligns in that person? Do they share the same values that you have? What similarities do you have? Do you have hobbies that both of you love? If you both love going to Pilates, that can be our thing together. And I think it's really important to identify. I don't think there is such thing as a best friend. I think and I don't know if you can agree with me, but in my 30s, I'm like, I have all of my friends are best friends, but in multiple capacities. I have one friend who is amazing for deep talks. I have one friend who is amazing to go to Pilates with. I have one friend who is amazing to go on a night out with. I have one friend who is amazing to go and, walk on the beach with and come up with business ideas. All my friends are so different that instead of putting pressure on one person to be your best friend and to fit
I
all
do
of
put
the
pressure on one person.
yeah, you do. And that's beautiful. If that person can, hit the mark and actually, be that for you, amazing. Then you're lucky, I would say.
No, but I know exactly what you mean, because now I feel like when I'm developing friendships and creating relationships, I'm not looking for that one size fits all.
Yeah.
Right? I'm looking for just one part of it that could appeal to me or make sense to me. And that one part of my life that they get me in, that they understand me in, because I think that is so important in a friendship, right?
Totally.
That they accept you and they accept that side of you.
Yeah.
And
it's like a
that's what I
piece.
look for.
It's a piece of the puzzle again. And they come, and let me tell you, your friends won't even like each other, but it doesn't even matter, because I think these individual one-to-one relationships are way more important nowadays than getting groups together and getting everyone to get along. And I think these independent relationships are the most important.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nimmi. That was such a wonderful conversation. And I think it's actually going to be helpful for so many people that are watching, which really fills my heart, because I think that's exactly what I intended to do with you today. But I'd love to hear from everyone in the comments below if this helped you in any way, if it had any sort of positive influence in your life. I think it would make both of us very, very happy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for
No,
having
of
me.
course. Thank you for
And
coming in.
no,
Thank
of
you for your time.
course. Honored.
Really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching or listening all the way through. I genuinely hope this episode gave you something to think about, something to feel, or maybe even something to shift the way you show up in your own life. If it did, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. It helps this show reach way more incredible people like you, and it tells us that you're here for more. We've got some really special guests lined up, and I don't want you to miss them. Also, tell me what really touched you in the comments below. I read every single comment, and your reflections honestly help us shape where this show goes next, who we bring on, and what we dive into. And if someone popped into your head while listening, send this episode their way. You never know whose day, mindset, or journey it could impact.